the hour now, and hopefully everybody's got their audio all set up. So, welcome everybody to the Sutron Global exclusive educational webinar. This week we're going to be covering successfully interacting with colleagues and organizational gatekeepers to advance your career. Some quick introductions to get us started. As most of you, I'm sure, are already aware, we have Michael Hughes, who's coming to us from our London, UK office. We have myself, Tanya Anderson. I'm coming from Vancouver, BC. And we have our special guest, of course, who's coming to us from California. Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about us and why we did this?
Happy to, thank you, Tanya. So Sutron Global is a cloud-based library, knowledge and information management solution provider, for those that don't know, and we are dedicated to managing library transformation and helping information professionals do what they do best, with the minimum amount of stress and the least amount of difficulty in serving their patrons. The way in which we do that is seen on the next slide, where we have some of the Sutron Global solutions that we offer. So core to our offering is our ILS, Library Information Management System. But increasingly over time, we've kind of branched across into the realm of managing digital content also, particularly in the pandemic, of course. So we also offer now a Sutron Global Discovery platform, which is a one-stop shop for federated search of all of your online and in-house information repositories, as well as capability around archives and KM and digital assets as well. So on to the next slide, please. For anybody that's interested in any of those solutions, part of the program that we are here under today, this webinar series, another feature of that is financial assistance for anybody interested in onboarding with any of those solutions that we saw on the previous screen. So on the next slide, you'll be able to see how you'll be able to reach out to us and connect to us if you are interested in learning a little bit more about that, or some of the additional webinars that we have coming up in this series, how you can access those that have already been. We can help you with all of that. So please do follow us on social media or connect to us directly via your preferred outlet or channel. So without too much further ado, let me hand it back to Tanya, whose great pleasure it is to introduce our guest speaker again today, and we'll be on our way with the seminar program. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So as Michael said, it's my great pleasure to introduce Deb Hunt, who is the head of the Mechanics Institute and leader of Information Edge, and of course, a past SLA president. So without further ado, Deb, please, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're coming from. It's a beautiful autumn day here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So the reason I wanted to talk about this, because I think one of the things about interacting now is we've taken it to a different level, because so much of what we're doing is virtual. And right now, for example, you cannot see my body language or my expression. And I think this is true. I wanted to talk about the skill set both when we're in person and when we're remote. So I hope what I say today will be helpful. And it really is true that the interactions that we have with those that we work with really can make a difference in our career. So maybe some of the things I'll share today you'll know about, but hopefully this will reinforce them, or hopefully you'll even learn some new ideas. But these are things that I've found to be successful both in my consulting work and as a library director and throughout my career. So let's go ahead to the next slide. And here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, the importance of successful interactions, the 5 secrets of successful interactions, and then most importantly, developing your own talking points for success. And at the end, I'm going to have some homework for you to do. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right. So as you know, good communication is a key element of successful interactions with others. Sharpening this skill can enhance your capabilities and chances for career advancement. So today I will discuss the 5 skills of successful interactions with others that are necessary to enhance your abilities and chances for career advancement. So let's go on to the next one. So here are 5 key strategies, skills, tactics, or components for successful communication. I'm going to share the secrets of success for each type of interaction. and this will help you develop your talking points, which really is your marketing plan. First, we'll discuss the importance of storytelling, or how to tell your story and what key elements your story should include. Then we're going to look at the elevator pitch. As you probably know, this is the 30-second pitch you need to recite when you meet someone for the first time or even subsequent times. You may have a short time to make your pitch, and you need to make a good impression so the listener knows your story, who you are, and why she or he should continue to listen. And after that, remember you. And then after that, I'll share about the importance of listening. And lastly, I will address getting buy-in and getting to yes or closing the deal. Next slide, please. So why is telling your story so important? We probably all know that first impressions can mean everything. And I was thinking about in this time of COVID, how probably when we go to the store or we go out and we see somebody without a mask, that is a big first impression, right? Because maybe we're angry with them because they're not protecting us. But first impressions, I don't know if you've read, I have read that when we go to a job interview, for example, that often those who are waiting to interview us in the first 30 to 60 seconds, they may have already made up their mind about whether they're going to want us to be part of their team, because first impressions are so important. How we walk into a room, how we look, how we dress, those sorts of things. So first impressions can really mean everything. We have a limited time to make a pitch, and there's an importance of conveying your value. Sometimes I think, I know in the information pro and library profession, we are reluctant to shout from the rooftops the value that we bring to our organizations or a potential employer or client. And so we need to know how to convey our value. And it really is a sales pitch for you and the work that you do and the value that you bring. And concise storytelling, that really is a hallmark of successful people. If you think about people that you love being around, it's probably because they're good storytellers. They engage you and they know how to engage you so that you want to listen. People do remember stories. They may not remember a factoid, but they'll often remember a story. And remember that your story is your unique brand. I think most of us don't think about it that way, but it's really important to think about that and to own it. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So we're going to talk about storytelling. So remember, you want your story to engage and excite the involvement of listeners. You want to develop stories to support the work you do or aspire to. And then you want to get testimonials. So let me tell you more. Everyone has a story to tell. Everyone. When we craft an argument, develop a vision, create a strategic plan, or roll out a marketing program, we are telling our stories. And all information professionals, even those who don't see themselves as a public speaker or potential CEO or CIO or other high-level manager, must be able to convey their message well. Storytelling can work as a pitch for more money, higher salary, more budget, for creating a new vision, and for setting a new direction. It is also a helpful and honest way to convey information from executives or the organization at large back to your staff or back to you. So essentially, it can become two-way communication through engagement and story sharing up and down the organizational hierarchy. So not only do we want to be telling our own story and making sure it gets out there, but we also want to be sure that we listen. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, because there's great stories coming down the chain of command to us as well. The other thing I encourage you to do is gather testimonials touting the work you do and the value you bring to the organization or to your clients. Don't be shy. Ask for them in your organization, from clients, and on LinkedIn, and then share them as part of your story. And I realized when I was preparing this, I thought, wow, it's been a long time since I've even looked to see if anybody's left a testimonial on my LinkedIn profile. So that's on my to-do list. And I encourage you to do that too. And to ask for people that you know who know your work to put testimonials there, to post them. And then offer to do the same for others. Offer to provide testimonials for those that you think are doing a great job in whatever they're doing. They're amazing folks. Somebody that you know maybe hasn't touted or tooted their own horn enough that you could provide a testimonial for. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So that we're going to talk about your elevator speech or pitch. Most of us know that we have 30 seconds to make an impression on somebody, but I'm going to encourage you not only to have a 30-second one, I'm going to encourage you to have a 60-second one, a 3-minute one, and a 5-minute one. And I know when I have approached either clients or executive directors with ideas or something I think is really important, oftentimes I'll start with the 30-second pitch, but then they'll say, well, tell me more. Well, I need to be prepared to tell them more. If I only have that 30-second pitch, it's not going to be enough. In my back pocket, I need to have a longer pitch. But before we go on to that, the 30-second pitch, you should know it by heart so that you can reel it off. And I'll tell you, every year when we meet in person at the Association of Independent Information Professional Conference, the first full day of the conference, every person who attends, and usually there's about 100, has 30 seconds to get up in front of everybody else and do their pitch. And that's frightening at first, but once you get it down and you memorize it and you're passionate about it, it really shows. And people think, oh my gosh, this is such a powerful tool. This is who I am. Here's the value I bring. And so I encourage you to have that 30-second one and work on that. And that's part of your homework, but we'll talk about that later. So I mentioned you want to know that shorter one by heart. The other ones you can have notes for the longer ones. But again, if you're passionate about it, usually that will all come out even in a longer pitch. You want to say it with passion, show that you're engaged on it. And as I mentioned, be prepared to expand on it and don't count on it as your only tool. We're going to talk more about those tools. We already talked about storytelling, but we'll talk about the rest. And this is an excellent short article called The Elevator Speech is the Swiss Army Knife of Job Search Tools. But remember, it's a tool you can use every day in your current position as well, not just in a job search. And I do have a Swiss Army knife that looks like this, and they do come in handy. So if you can think of it that way, it's really something that can enhance your career potential, your ability to get more budget, more salary, that sort of thing. Sometimes I do find it's easier to explain what I do by asking a question. And I often engage with clients and colleagues by asking, what keeps you awake at night? And it is amazing the answers that I get. Once I know what troubles them, I can shift my pitch to share ideas for helping them. Because remember, it's not about me and it's not about you, it's about them. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Listening. Oh, listening to what customers, competitors, and experts are saying can be extremely productive and allow you to shape your response. I actually have sitting here on my monitor a little post-it note that has this quote on it: be swift to hear and slow to speak, from the New Testament. Why? Because I think so fast that when somebody's talking, I've already come to a solution and I have to stop myself and bite my tongue and hear them out, because I haven't heard their whole story until they're done telling it. So once you know what someone's challenges are, you can be proactive and you can fulfill their needs or share that information with stakeholders in your organization or your clients. You can modify your pitch to meet the needs and challenges of your customer or your client base and even expand it. So be swift to hear and slow to speak. Next slide, please. So I said I would talk about getting buy-in. You know, getting buy-in is knowing how to get the people around you, primarily your manager, your client, and other stakeholders, to listen to you. But it's also could be colleagues and coworkers, subordinates, customers, suppliers, whoever you are dealing with, to get those individuals to buy in to your ideas and your advice. So how can you do that? Well, senior executives are often inundated with information. They often have a tough time trying to sort out hype from genuine trends. To get buy-in, you need to become and be recognized as an expert on the topics that are of greatest interest to your senior managers, your stakeholders, your clients. So how do you develop this expertise? Or perhaps even more importantly, how do you build the perception that you are the expert? Well, you should always be ready to share valuable information when asked, but better yet, be proactive, not reactive. You should stay visible and communicate regularly with top management in person, by phone, via email, Twitter, whatever medium that your stakeholders prefer, not your preferred means of communication. It's all about using their preferred means of communication. You need to become the go-to person for both inside information and outside information and knowledge. If they know that they can trust you, not only trust you, but you can also connect them with experts in the field when they need to get up to speed on a topic, they will call upon you. If you do these things regularly, you will build trust with management, and it will be easier to obtain buy-in, budget, or whatever else support that you need when you need it. You'll have a better chance of getting support for your ideas and projects if you follow these tips. So be proactive, gain trust, and those are really the keys to getting buy-in. Okay, next slide, please. So getting to yes, wow. Well, it's really all about the things we've talked about so far. You need to be able to demonstrate your value. Why is it in a time of layoffs or a time of changes in an organization or even job hunting, why should people, they need to know how you positively affect the bottom line of the organization or the client's organization. You need to consistently get buy-in. You need to see the world through their eyes and see their point of view. Often we want to see it through our lens, right? And our point of view, but it's really important to see it through theirs. And you need to adapt to reality, whatever that reality is. So remember, don't try to change the world to meet your vision. Remember, it's not about you. And that's hard sometimes. Okay, next slide, please. So I've given you kind of a template here, and I'm going to encourage you to take a piece of paper and write down these 5 secrets that we've talked about. And this will be available to you, of course, after this so that you can get to them later if you don't write it down now. Your story. So these 5 things are the secrets. What's your story? And I don't want you to write the answer right now. I just want you to think about these 5 things. What's your 30-second elevator pitch? Write it, memorize it, time it, practice it. I've practiced it with dogs, I've practiced it in front of the mirror, and then I've practiced it on family and then gone from there. What do you listen for? Remember about listening. How do you get buy-in? And how do you get to yes? So your homework after this webinar will be to review today's slides and then write your own story, your elevator pitch, and so forth, so that you have these in your back pocket to share and tell the world, your boss, potential employers, and anyone who will listen. They will be an invaluable set of tools to empower you to succeed. They will evolve and change over time, but you must have them in your professional toolkit to move forward. Please, please make time to do this. And I'm going to give you a deadline, as any good instructor would or mentor, that you do this by this Friday. It doesn't have to be the finished product. You don't even have to have your 30-second pitch memorized. But I'm going to encourage you to do this by this Friday, because we know if you have a deadline that it gets done. And I guarantee that if you do and start using these tips and these talking points, you will be amazed at the results you get. And I'm going to end with just a quick story about a colleague and friend who was the first archivist at Pixar. So Christine had just graduated from library school. This was many years ago. And she was it was around this time of the year, and she was actually at a family gathering. And she was complaining to her brother-in-law that she had all these skills and she hadn't found a job yet, but she knew she could organize assets. She was into digital asset management. And she mentioned, and so he said, well, tell me, like, why would somebody hire you? So she kind of did her 30-second pitch, and she talked about her story and her passion. And she said, she told a story. She said, I love Pixar and I love the work that they do. And I wonder, what do they do with all their storyboards and their models of Buzz Lightyear and Woody and all of those things? How are they making sure that those are findable and that they're archivally preserved and stored? And so she kind of just went on this little rant. Little did she know that her brother-in-law had a connection at Pixar, and he happened to ask this question. And the person said, I don't know, let me find out. So it turned out that her story and her passion resulted in her, I mean, she had to go through interviews and stuff, but she did become the first archivist that Pixar ever hired. And eventually she oversaw a department of 8 staff that were archivists as well. And I just think that, you know, if you're passionate about something, share that. You never know where it's going to go. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deb. So if anyone wants to reach out to Deb, here's her information here. And of course, I'm going to let Michael take questions. So Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Just anyone who's not familiar with the GoToWebinar interface, there's a panel over to the right side of the screen normally, and there's a questions area there. So please do feel free to submit any questions to Deb via that interface, and we'll be very happy to put those to Deb and take advantage of her presence here and draw upon her expertise. There is one that's come through right away in relation or in respect to storytelling, Deb. Any recommended resources is the question.
Well, you know, it's funny. I don't have any in my back pocket, but I'm going to grab something off my office bookshelf here. Whoops, as I lose my headset. Sorry about that. And I'm pulling off the shelf the librarian skill book because we have a whole chapter on that. And let me see what I have for our because we have, you know, the 51 skills, and I know storytelling is one of them. And it's been a while since we've written that, but actually we're going to do a new edition of that, David Grossman and I. And where is storytelling? I know is here somewhere. There are a lot of good ones out there. If you go to that, the article that I mentioned about, you know, the Swiss Army knife with your pitch is part of that. Okay, do we not have storytelling in here? I know we do, but I'm not. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay, 125. Let me look at the resources that we have there. So we're going to update those resources. Let's see. So we have some things here. There's in Lifehacker, there's an article called The Science of Storytelling. There's another one at mindtools.com on business storytelling, using stories to inspire. Debbie Schachter did a great article in Information Outlook, which was SLA's magazine. It's available online in 2008, but it's still relevant today because I just recently looked at it, called Information Pro as Storyteller. So those are a couple of resources.
Lots of good stuff, and we can circulate those pointers afterwards.
Okay.
There's another one actually on storytelling, seems to be quite popular.
Okay.
Storytelling, does it have to be a current story, or could it be an older item that may show your value?
That's a great question. And so on my website, on Information Edge's website, I do have some testimonials, and most of those are not real current. They're several years old, but they still are relevant. Like I had one client, it was a big document management project for a defense contractor. And I remember that this guy was so, I have to say, I was kind of scared of him, which sounds funny, but he had these really high expectations, and I could tell he was a perfectionist, and he did not suffer fools gladly. He was very blunt about it. And I remember at the end of the consultancy, I always do an exit interview because I want to find out for sure what worked and what didn't work. And it was interesting. He said, "Wow, you exceeded my expectations." And so I put that, asked him if I could quote him. I didn't say what the company was. I just put defense contractor. But that's a story I'm telling you right now. That's an old story, but people still, clients and potential clients and even employers think, wow, if you've exceeded expectations of somebody who's a perfectionist, or maybe not even a perfectionist, that says a lot about you. And I think those are the sorts of things. So you don't have to have a big story. It can be a small story, but you want to demonstrate your value. And the other thing I encourage you to do, the testimonials, there'll be stories. If you ask for testimonials, stories about you will come out in those testimonials, things that maybe you hadn't thought about as testimonials or stories about you. But it really is nice to see what your colleagues think about you who maybe haven't said it to you. So I encourage you to ask, and you'll be surprised. And the stories do not need to be current. I think they need to be relevant, though. So if you're talking about a skill set that isn't relevant to something that maybe when you're interviewing or asking for more money in your current job, rather than talk about the particular thing that happened, you might talk about the values around it, like you persevered, you made sure you had buy-in, you got a budget, that you needed, that sort of thing. Those are good stories to tell, and they're timeless
Right.
if you have that
Right.
skill
Yeah.
set.
Great tip about the testimonials. Actually, that's a really good point. So there's a great question here for you, Deb. How does one get in the head of a senior stakeholder?
That is a great question. I would say getting to know them, and that seems like an odd thing to say, but and that's hard to do because you can't just walk up to them and say, "Oh, so tell me about yourself." I mean, you can in some instances, but most of the time you cannot. So we know how to find intelligence and knowledge, right? Tap into the tools, look at their LinkedIn profile, um, look to see if they won awards. Are they part of certain associations? What does that tell you about them? What do other people say about them? Read those testimonials. Where have they worked? Find out. That's a good way to find out what's important to them and what they value. And then I have found that often, depending on where they are in the organization, if they have an administrative assistant or somebody like that who knows them very well, often you can just say, I'm new here, or I'm trying to, do a better job of meeting the needs of the organization and contribute to the bottom line. Is there something that I should know about so and so that would help me to serve him better in a way of, providing the kind of information he or she needs to do their job better and make their life easier?
Yeah, that's good advice. Very good. This is, I don't even know if you know the answer to this one because it's kind of a new world order scenario. But
Mhm.
how does one do this kind of networking in a fully virtual working world with no elevators to bump into each other in?
That is a great question. So, as you know, one of my past, or I think it was the last webinar I did for Sutron Global was about the value of the professional association. And a lot of us are meeting virtually now. I know I think this Friday I'm going to a Special Libraries Association San Francisco community. It's like a lunch, just get together and we're going to have trivia. And it's a great way to get to know people. It makes it possible then to follow up with them after, because as you meet people maybe you don't know or don't know so well, that's a fun event, but it also gives you an entree into them. Then you can look them up and find out what it is about them, and do informational interviews even. I've had a slew of the last 3 weeks of informational interviews with recent or almost newly minted MLIS grads, and I was just able to hook one of them up with my friend Christine at Pixar, and hook them up with some other people's. Another one is all about digital asset management, and I was able to pull some strings from my past. This is important to maintain connections, of the Exploratorium, which is a science and art museum in San Francisco. Not art, I should say science, human perception, and art, but not like an art museum, a hands-on museum, that I worked on a big digital asset management project there, which is no longer available to the public. But because I've kept my network going, I was able to email somebody and say, so can I get in? Can you give me the password and username? And they did without hesitation because they knew I wouldn't share it. But I was able to share what to get in and show this product to this student, or and so because she's passionate about digital asset management, and it opened up a great conversation about taxonomy and metadata and other things.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Deb. This is a good one about qualification, I think. You mentioned working with colleagues, not just management. During COVID, this person has to increasingly coordinate virtually, and some of the colleagues working in other departments are trying to help their bosses. when they send requests and ideas, I can't always tell if their boss really needs this info or if the assistant just thinks it's a good idea. Also, they may not realize the kind of overhead involved with responding to these kinds of requests because they are very time consuming. So any tips about that one?
Oh, yes, that is hard when people try to pinch hit for their boss or their superior and then they lay it at your feet. I would have a set of questions that you can ask them, maybe 3 or 4 questions. You can say, first of all, in the priority of things, where does this fall on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5? And then ask them why. If they say it's a 1, is it really a 1? Can you tell me more? You know, I mean, and explain to them that you're not being contrary, but you have a lot of demands on your time and you're trying to prioritize your priorities as well, because you have many asking you these, you know, sorts of questions or research questions. The other thing I would encourage you to do is think about who their bosses are and where they fall in the hierarchy. And we've probably all heard this before. Back when I was in library school, you know, we saw everybody as equal. And I think that's wonderful because especially at a public library, we tend to see that. But when you get into more corporate or organizational, where there's politics, there's stakeholders who have more power, more budget power, those are the ones you're going to give priority to. And I know that sounds heartless, but that's a reality because those are the stakeholders who are going to turn around and support you.
Absolutely. I think we're all done at that point. There's a question, more of a comment really. Someone asked if Deb was planning a new edition of the skill book, but then the person that asked the question realized that you just answered that. So she said, yes. I was told to thank you for that, Deb. So obviously quite eagerly anticipated and a welcome update, I think, for that particular person. So thank you for that. Yeah, I think we're all done there. So let me hand that back over to Tanya to talk about how people can follow us. But thanks ever so much, Deb.
And I want to just thank everybody for making time. I know everybody's busy and I really enjoy connecting with everyone. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it, just like we appreciate Deb's time. So thank you again, Deb, for joining us and answering everybody's questions. So everyone, just so you know, we do have an upcoming webinar to kind of wrap up 2020, and it's actually called the 2020 Wrap Up. So please join us for that. We're going to be talking about change and how to deal with it, and just more of how to help yourselves, which is kind of what this whole series has been about, if you will. So follow us on social media to get updates about that. We have Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. You can watch all of the past webinars with Deb on YouTube. And we have a few other resources there that you can see. So don't be shy to go check those out. When you get your copy of the PDF for the PowerPoint, there will be links to all of these in there. So feel free just to click on one to easily get there. All right, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@sutronglobal.com. And of course, please visit us at sutronglobal.com for our knowledge services blogs, news, and much more. And of course, the details for the next event that we're holding in December, on December 8th, by the way. So thank you again, and we'll see you all soon, hopefully. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.